And this week we come to you from Cape Town Civic Centre, which is currently hosting a photography exhibition dedicated to former President Nelson Mandela. More on that later in the programme. First up, we bring you an interview with Western Cape Finance Minister Winde, who recently returned from a visit to China. CNBC Africa took the opportunity to speak with him on trade opportunities that existed between South Africa's mother province and the Asian economic superpower.
Okay, well, first of all, why China? And I think South Africa being part of BRICS now, a key trading partner, and also a massive trade deficit. So at the moment, we are buying as a region, as the Western Cape province, we're buying just on 20 billion rands worth of product out of China every year. And we're only exporting 1.4 billion rands worth of product to China. So we've got a trade deficit. The growth of our exports is sitting at 7.7%. And the growth of our imports is sitting at around about 18%. So we really need to work on that market to fix that trade deficit.
You mentioned that there's a large trade deficit, a trade imbalance between South Africa and China. Looking at our exports going to China, what scope is there besides wine? What other products, markets is there potential for our industry to move into?
Well, I think obviously out of this region, we play quite a big role in getting our raw materials out. Saldanha Bay is part of this region where our iron ore goes out. We need to actually have a look at how we beneficiate, and I know that's a discussion that's happening in South Africa. So we rather send a beneficiated product, whether it's I don't know if we'll get directly to steel into China, but at least maybe get into iron ore pellets. Start adding something in the value chain. Then having a look, we've got specialist companies here that manufacture masts for racing yachts, and they export to China. That's probably their biggest market at the moment, exporting to China, who are getting into the specialist space, and we've got niche companies that are moving there. And then I think in our agricultural product space, there's also opportunity. We've got to get more of our agricultural product and agri-processed product. I think that the China market is huge. But maybe if I should get back into Hisense and the Hisense meeting, which for me was very exciting. They've already made the initial 300 million rand investment into Atlantis, which is an area that we need to create jobs in, and that was really welcome. And so they're manufacturing television sets and they're manufacturing fridges in Atlantis. And looking forward, the visit was to convince them that they need to expand. They're already indicating, and they showed us their production lines on smartphones, on tablets, and on the air conditioner units. And what really interested me is that their production lines aren't 100% mechanized, which you see, you go to some manufacturing, say in Germany, and it's very, very mechanized. In China, they do try and create that balance so that you actually have people sitting in the production lines. And, we need to create jobs. So that was exciting.
It'd be great to move on the region. If we move on to the special economic zones, and we see legislation being pushed through Parliament around there, Western Cape has a number of opportunities around the development of SEZs, and you mentioned beneficiation of some of our iron and steel products in the region. Tell us about what potential lies around the special economic zones, and can you give us an update on the legislation going through Parliament at the moment?
Okay, well, first of all, we've been going for quite a long time on an industrial development zone, which is the Saldanha Bay one, which is primarily where you'll see some beneficiation. And obviously that's under the IDZ legislation, and you're talking about SEZs, which is kind of a new guise, and I think that what will happen over time is that Saldanha will also then fall under the SEZ legislation. But in the interim, that process is ongoing. We've now completed, and we're now just waiting for initial sign-off by Minister Rob Davies and and his department. They get sort of final sign-off, gone through all the processes, and that's imminent. Then the next space, which is the SEZ and that legislation, and that's also getting to a stage now where it's almost ready for sign-off. And what we will be focusing on in the Western Cape is the green economy. So we'll be looking at a green hub, or a green manufacturing hub primarily. That's what we'll be focusing on. And also looking towards the West Coast and Atlantis. I think that does lend itself to green manufacture. We want to become the province and the region, not only in South Africa, but in Africa, with the lowest carbon footprint. So we've really got to work really hard at creating the right environment. And I think attracting green manufacturing is going to be a good job creator, but also good for our carbon footprint. So that will be our focus on the first special economic zone, which is imminent. It's in the final stages.
You mentioned it's imperative for us to create the right environment. Can we touch on some of the incentives that will be offered in these zones to companies looking to invest?
Okay, well, first, even though it's not in place yet, and the incentives that we speak about there at a national level will be tax incentives. And primarily we'll see tax incentives coming in now as announced by Minister Gordon, tax incentives coming in on skills level, skills training, which will be quite exciting because we haven't seen many tax incentives in our industrial development zones as yet, and I think the more incentives we put in place, the better. And then we've already seen the City of Cape Town moving ahead, knowing that municipalities have also got a role to play. So you would have seen a bylaw passed a month or so ago by the City of Cape Town that also starts to look at incentives, and we've already created in the Atlantis area, which we've been talking about, incentives to attract industry. So you will see that factories in the Atlantis area that employ over a certain number of people or show the employment numbers in their company won't get electricity increases. If they want to be new investments where you normally pay augmentation fees, you know, your initiation fees when you start to build a factory, they'll waive those certain costs in certain areas like Atlantis to really attract those companies, take a bit of the initial cost out of the equation. So when you start to bring those two together, it'll start to create more incentive into those regions, which are the regions that we need to create the jobs in. And I think that also is part of the corridor discussion between the city region, which is the key economic region of the province, and then moving into Saldanha. So that corridor is going to become very important over the next 20 and 30 years.
Touching on trade and investment, staying with that, we've seen great figures for foreign direct investment coming into the Western Cape recently. Can we touch on those results?
Well, we're really excited looking at the number of FDIs into the region, and we've seen the number grow. So it's more companies making decisions, and maybe not as bigger numbers. And I think that's obviously the global framework in which we find ourselves, the global economy. I think a lot of people are holding on, but we're seeing a far bigger number of investors coming in, and 4.4 billion coming into our economy in the Western Cape last year. So that's really great and growing. And you know, every single day, this office, our trade and investment company, Westgrow, the department, and just generally across the economy, we're getting more and more people coming in from other parts of the world saying, we've got money, we want to invest, we see opportunity in this region.